had no idea, Lockhart continued, giving Harry a little shake that made his glass slip to the end of his nose, that he would shortly be getting much more than the book Magical Me. He and his schoolmates will, in fact, be getting the real pride in announcing that this September I'll be taking up the post of Defense the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The crowd cheered and clapped, and Harry found himself being presented with the entire works of Gilderoy Lockhart, staggering slightly under the weeds. He managed to make his way out of the limited to the edge of the room where Ginny was standing next to her new cauldron. "You have this," Harry mumbled to her, tipping the books into the cauldron. "I'll buy my own." "Bet you loved that, did you, Harry Potter?" said a voice Harry had no trouble recognizing. He straightened up and found himself face to face with Draco Malfoy, who was wearing his usual sneer. "Famous Harry Potter," said Malfoy. "Can't even go in a bookshop without making the front page." "Leave him alone. He didn't want outlit," said Ginny. It was the first time she had spoken in front of Harry. She was glaring at Malfoy. "Potter, you've got yourself a good friend," drawled Malfoy, shooting one scarlet as Ron and Hermione fought their way over, both clutching stacks of Lockhart's books. "Oh, it's you," said Ron, looking at Malfoy as if he were something unpleasant to sow his youth. "Bet you're surprised to see Harry here, huh?" "Not as surprised as I am to see you in the shop, Weasley," retorted Malfoy. "I suppose your parents will go hungry for a month to pay for all those." Ron went as red as Ginny. He dropped his book into the cauldron too, and stared toward Malfoy. But Harry and Hermione grabbed the back of his jacket. "Run!" said Mr. Weasley, struggling over with Fred and George. "What are you doing? It's too crowded in here. Let's go outside." Well, Arthur Weasley." It was Mr. Malfoy. He stood with his hand on Draco's shoulder, sneering in just the same way. "Lucius," said Mr. Weasley, nodding coldly. "Busy time at the ministry, I hear," said Mr. Malfoy. "Oh, this reads. I hope they're paying you overtime." He reached into Ginny's cauldron and extracted from amid the glossy Locker's book a very old, very battered copy, a beginner's guide to transfiguration. "Obviously not," Mr. Malfoy said. "Dear me, what's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?" Mr. Weasley flushed darker than even Ron or Ginny. "We have a very different idea of what disgrace the name of Wizard Malfoy," he said. "Clearly," said Mr. Malfoy, his pale eyes staring to Mr. and Mrs. Granger, who were watching apprehensively. "The company you keep, Weasley, and I thought your family could sink no lower." There was a thud of metal as Ginny's cauldron went flying. Mr. Weasley had thrown himself at Mr. Malfoy, knocking him backward into a bookshelf. Dozens of heavy spellbooks came thundering down all their heads, and it was a yell of "Get him, Dad!" from Fred or George. Mrs. Weasley was shrieking, "No, Arthur, no!" The crowd trampled backward, knocking more shelves over. "Gentlemen, please, please!" cried the assistant, and then louder than all, "Break it up, there, gents, break it up!" Harry was running toward them through the sea of books. In an instant he had pulled Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy apart. Mr. Weasley had a cut lip, and Mr. Malfoy had been hit in the eye by an encyclopedia and toothstool. He was still holding Ginny's old Transfiguration book. He thrust it at her, his eyes glittering with malice. "Here, God, take your book. It's the best your father can give you." Pulling himself out of Hagrid's grip, he beckoned to Draco and swept from the shop. You should have ignored him, Arthur," said Hagrid, almost lifting Mr. Weasley off his feet as he strengthened his ropes. "Rotten Terrorcore, the whole family. Everyone knows that. No Malfoy worth listening to, bad blood. That's what it is. Come on now, let's get out of here." The assistant looked as though he wanted to stop them living, but he barely came up to Harry's waist and seemed to think better of it. They hurried up the street, the Granger shaking with fright and Mrs. Weasley inside herself with fury. "A fine example to set for your children, bawling in public. What Gilderoy Lockhart must be thought." "He was pleased," said Fred. "Didn't you hear him as we were leaving? He was asking the bloke for the Daily Prophet if he'd be able to work the fight into the report. Said it was all publicity, but it was a sudden gulp that headed back to the flat side in Leaky Cauldron, where Harry and Weasley and all their shopping would be travelling back to Burrows using Floo powder. They said goodbye to Grangers, who were leaving the pub for the Muggle Street on the other side. Mr. Weasley started to ask them how bus stops work, but stopped quickly at the look on Mrs. Weasley's face. Harry took off his glasses and put them safely into the pocket before helping him to Floo powder. I definitely wasn't his favorite way to travel. Chapter 4 finished. Hey everyone, I'm very sorry that I didn't do my book reading. I will try to do my book reading every day from now, so please watch me. Bye, thank you.